Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello, dear learners. Welcome again to the next lecture of the course of Fundamentals of Public Economics. In the last lecture, we have discussed how the subject matter of public finance works in the economy. What is public finance? And how public finance has moved towards public economics. Along with that, we have also discussed what are the various sources of revenue in the scope of public finance, government expenditure, that is for the welfare of the state, and an important principle of public finance, that is the principle of maximum social advantage. In this principle, we have discussed already the Dalton approach and the Musgrave approach. Now, let's move further to the public sector and allocation of resources. Yesterday, you remember we have discussed the market failure. So, we'll get an insight of one of the important reasons of market failure, then the allocation in the form of public goods and private goods and the theories of allocation of public good. That would be covered in today's lecture. So, let's start with the concept of market failure. See, market failure, yesterday also I gave you a brief description of market failure. It is what? It is an economic situation. What kind of economic situation is this? Economic situation that is defined by an inefficient distribution of goods and services in the free market. See, in the capitalist economy, there was free market operations. The concept of invisible hand was there. The demand and supply was self-adjusting. Howsoever, there were various problems that crept in such a market situation that led to inefficient distribution of goods and services. The power were concentrating in the hands of few. The difference between private cost and social cost was huge. People were not concerned of welfare. Profit became the only motive. So what happened was, individual incentives for rational behavior do not lead to rational outcome from the group. That means the individual, the citizen, was more concerned for her benefit. His behavior was rational. His incentive was profit. Howsoever, when individual behavior surpassed the society, when individual incentives surpassed the society, what happened was, many a times the outcome was not fruitable, not good for the society. So, a rational outcome for the group was very different for the individual output. So, there was a state of disequilibrium and concentration of power, profit motive, all these led to market distortions. So, some of the causes of market failure, what we will be seeing is, first, the externalities, the asymmetric information, then uncertainties and market control. See, asymmetric information is basically dissemination of information. Dissemination of information is the actual information was not reaching the society. The actual information was not reaching the consumers in the market. There were distortions in information. So, an information gap was created, leading to disequilibrium in market demand and supply, leading to distortions in market. Similar was the case with uncertainties as well. Uncertainties also gave scenario of disequilibrium. When the information was lacking, when the paucity of information was there, what happened was, people were uncertain. What will be the price? How the demand curve will fluctuate? What will be the supply? So, it had become difficult to manage the equilibrium conditions. Market control obviously were in the hands of few. Concentration of power became in the hands of few. Profit motive was there, capitalist was the king. And one more factor was there, that was externality. So I'll be discussing externality in a little detail because externality many a times led to huge market distortions. So let's start with discussing externality. See, to be simple, when we say externality is a spillover effect or a neighborhood effect. Now, what do we mean by a spillover and a neighborhood effect? In economics, we always say that individuals' utility is a function of activities what an individual does. Basically, if he is consuming certain things, it is him who is consuming, it is her who is consuming, and his want is satisfied. You all know that utility is the want satisfying power of a commodity. So when we say an individual A, suppose, has a utility A, then what will happen? The utility of this individual will be the function of what activities the individual is doing. Suppose activity x1, x2, x3 and so on. All the activities which an individual is doing would impact his utility. Apart from that, when externalities exist, individual's utility is also impacted by an activity of some other individual, say Y. That means many a times our utility is not only impacted by us, what we are doing, but also our utility is impacted by an activity of some other person. So it is said to be present when utility of an individual, as I said, does depend not only on the goods and services the individual purchases, but also on the activity of some other individual. See, we can discuss this like this. Supposing a person loves to play guitar in the morning and he wants to join a rock band. So what will happen? In the morning, at some point of time, he'll be loudly playing the guitar and practicing more and more so that he can be into a rock band and the loud music would be there. That is his utility, his benefit. In the future, what will happen? In the future, he might get into a rock band, the recognition, the status, the various celebrity feeling might come into him when he is into a rock band. So that is his utility. Howsoever, supposing Peter is playing a guitar and another individual, John, is there who in the morning time studies, who in the morning time wants to sleep in a peaceful environment, and he gets disturbed by such a loud music of guitar. So what happens? John's utility of sleeping or of studying is also being impacted by what Peter is doing. So as per Buchanan and Stubblebine, externality exists whenever, mind it, utility function of individual includes a variable which is under the control of second individual. Guitar playing is under the control of second individual. However, for the first individual, that is for John, his utility is being impacted. Now, these externalities can be both positive and negative. Now, what do we mean by positive and negative externalities? See, many a times when we were small and our exams were there in half-yearly were in September and annuals were in March. So when we used to study and a loud music is played outside on a speaker, or some marriage is there in the society near about, and the Bollywood songs and dance numbers were being played. See, you don't like that. So that is an example of a negative externality. Howsoever, education, vaccination against a particular disease, that is a policy that is provided by the government, and government says, okay, we are giving scholarship and you study further, or we are doing immunizations against a certain disease of each and every individual in the society. That is an example of a positive externalities. That means the action of government, the policies of government have an impact on us. So externalities can be both positive as well as negative. So how do we depict negative externality? See, we can depict this with the help of a diagram. On x-axis, we have taken the quantity, say output of certain thing, quantity is basically the output produced. The example which I was giving you was of John and Peter. See, Peter has an opportunity cost, some benefit and some cost is involved with Peter. How come? The benefit is the recognition, the benefit is the status, the benefit is his career in the rock band. Howsoever, the cost involved is basically the instruments, the guitar, the space he is occupying, the payment he is doing for that instrument is the cost for Peter. But what cost John is incurring is, that is the output. What price the John is incurring is maybe the peaceful environment, maybe his silent sleep, maybe the time of study which he is losing, a silent time of study in the morning which he is losing because Peter is practicing. So, on y-axis we have taken price and on x-axis we have taken the quantity or the output. The marginal social benefit is this curve which is depicted by, basically it is the demand curve, a relationship between output and price that an individual is facing. Now, in green you can see two cost curves. One is the marginal private cost curve which is termed as MPC, marginal private cost, this is marginal private cost, and the other one is marginal social cost. Now, when the practicing time is there, the output produced by the person who is playing the guitar, the marginal private cost and the marginal social benefit intersect at point E. At this point, the output is OQ1, at the price OP1. This is the individual benefit that an individual is getting. Howsoever, what happens is the marginal social cost, that means the noise pollution maybe which is happening, the action of an individual that is hampering the other person is the marginal social cost. The marginal social cost curve is depicted by MSC, that is basically the supply curve. So, what is happening if I say E dash? So, E dash is the welfare loss, is the cost that is there which is given up by the other person whose utility is being affected by playing of guitar. So, what can be done? So, this is E dash is basically the welfare loss, and for a social benefit where marginal social benefit should be equal to marginal social cost should be at point E double dash, where the output would be Q star and the price would be P star. This price is the price where marginal social benefit is equal to marginal social cost. So, E dash is the amount of negative externality that has been generated. Now, once this negative externality has been generated, how can this negative externality be managed? So, there are basically three ways to manage this negative externality. First and foremost, how policy actions can lead to corrective negative externality. First and foremost being taxation. See, certain amount of tax, I am not saying 100% tax is a solution to manage, but to some extent the tax many a times it can manage the whole of the negative externality, but certain percentage of tax can reduce the level of negative externality. So, corrective taxation of negative externality forces, what it forces market participant to account for opportunity cost of all resources allocated in private market. I will be dealing with, I will let you know with the help of a graph. See, similarly on x-axis we have taken the quantity and on y-axis we have taken the price. D is the marginal social benefit curve. This is what? This is marginal social benefit curve, that is basically the demand curve, and this is marginal. P stands for private curve. So, the quantity produced, the output produced, see supposing a rubber factory is there and the output or the resultant is the rotten smell that is being conveyed in the whole environment and the environment is smelling like rotten egg smell or rotten tire smell. So, that is a result of the output of that particular factory. So, OQ1 is the output. At OQ1 output, the price is OP1, as both of them are intersecting, marginal social benefit and marginal private cost are intersecting at E. So, equilibrium output is Q1 and price is P1. Howsoever, this would have been marginal social cost is MSC. So, E dash would have been the negative externality that has been generated. So, now here the role of government comes. What government does it? Government imposes a certain amount of tax. Now, when the tax is imposed, government can impress upon the entrepreneur or the firm or the business to reduce its production so that the output, the layabout of the smell in the environment can be reduced. That is, can be reduced to OQ2 at a price OP2, because marginal private cost plus taxation is given by this supply curve. So, the loss of welfare can be reduced. Many a times equal amount of tax can be imposed so that the negative externality can be eradicated, but many a times certain amount of tax reduces the negative externality, although P star is the efficient price at which the Q star should be efficient output, where marginal social cost is equal to marginal social benefit. But a certain amount of taxation would definitely reduce the negative externality. Similarly, subsidies. Subsidies are given by the government. Basically, they are a result from policies that pay firm for not producing negative externalities. So, subsidy can be one option for the firms, that if you reduce your output, the government as a part of policy would be giving certain amount of subsidies so that the byproduct is reduced, that may be polluting the environment, in the same example if I am taking. Third is the regulation. It is also called command and control. So, government can regulate, provide commands to various firms, individuals. See, this is just an example. Any individual, any firm that is nowadays command and control policy exercises, many factories are located at the outskirts so that they are not polluting the city environment. These are all a part of command and control. So, they can control the behavior that creates negative externality. Regulation can also be set in minimum environmental quality or maximum allowable levels of externalities. They can minimum quality setups can be given, that air quality should not reduce from this much amount as a byproduct of your firm. These are all a part of regulation and control. So, three methods through which negative externalities can be managed. Then we have positive externalities as well. So, the positive externalities, basically it is the opposite of negative externalities. Positive externalities occur whenever private market fails to allocate resources on the basis of social benefits. As I told you earlier, it can be immunization against a communicable disease or external benefits from education at school. That means government is providing various policies at primary level, secondary level, at higher education also various scholarships are given so that the student comes, various fees scholarships are given, books are being provided, uniform, luncheons. These are all what? These are all what? These help students to come to school, get enrolled, study. Education becomes an external benefit to the individual that is being provided as a policy measure by the government. So, basically in positive externality, marginal social benefit is higher than marginal private benefit. So, this is because benefit derives from consumption of goods positively influence others who are not a part of market exchange. See, if we are immunized for a particular disease, at least we will not be a person who will communicate these disease to some other person. So that is how the other person's utility is being affected. If I am immunized for a particular disease, I will not be an agent to communicate that particular disease to some other person. So automatically the chances of communication of that disease becomes low. So that is an external benefit to the other person because of a policy measure of immunization. So that is positive externality. Now, when government spends, yesterday also we have discussed that where the government is spending, what all the government is doing, government is establishing as a welfare state. So, government spends a certain amount of expenditure it does on public goods. So, see, first let us know, we were discussing the utility maximization, that is the human wants, want satisfying power. Now, the human wants are classified into private wants and public wants. Private wants are what? Individual wants. As me, you have a want for a phone maybe, or you want to drink water, you want food, you want to purchase certain things, you want to go out for a recreation purpose, you can go out to see a movie. That are all private wants. That will maximize our utility. But when we talk of public want, what is public want? Public wants are fulfilled via public goods, and public wants are those wants which are provided through budgetary allocation or through budget. See, these goods are provided, these are available free of charge to the user, maybe a road. So, to satisfy public wants, we have public goods. Similarly, goods are also classified as wants are classified into private and public. So, goods are also classified into private and public goods. Let us deal with them one by one. So, let us first discuss what is public good. See, public goods are those goods. The consumption of these goods are externalized. Externalized basically means that these goods are provided as a part of budgetary measure by the government, as a part of policy by the government for collective consumption. Maybe a construction of a road. A construction of a road via, or you can see the infrastructural development that is going on in the economy for the past few years, various highways, expressways, roadways, these are what? These are all public goods. Street lights, national defense, public parkings, all these things arranged are a part of public good. So, a flyover or a road is something on which anyone can walk, anyone can pass through that road. So, it is a good that will satisfy the collective wants or social wants in general. However, as Samuelson said, he said there should be 5 characteristics. If 5 characteristics are fulfilled, then a particular good would be called as a public good. So, first and foremost is of collective consumption. That means these goods are those goods that are jointly supplied and benefited from consumption of goods is more than one person. That means a group of individuals, many more people are satisfied by consumption of these goods, not an individual person, not a single person like you and me. Second most important characteristic is non-rival in consumption. See, non-rival in consumption basically means if I am walking on a road, I will not have a rivalry feeling that why you are walking on a road. N number of people can walk on that particular road, N number of people can sit in that street light, N number of people can go, according to obviously space, can go and park in the public parkings. Nobody would have a jealousy feeling why X is parking and Y is not parking, or why X is using and Y is not able to use. So, public good is something which is non-rival in consumption. Next most important thing is marginal cost of this good is 0. Now, what is marginal cost? See, marginal cost is change in total cost due to production of an extra unit of a commodity, that is MC, marginal cost. So, no matter how many people are using a certain public goods, the marginal cost of that particular public good would remain zero. Even if no one is using that good and a road is constructed and you are not passing by that road for some time or due to some reason, that does not have an impact on the marginal cost of the road. Even a huge public is walking via that road, or even not a single person is walking. Fourth characteristic is non-exclusion. You cannot exclude an individual for using that public good. A street light is there for everyone. You cannot exclude it, and it is indivisible. A public good can be consumed as a whole. You cannot divide that particular public good into small parts and use. Implies what? A road is used as a whole. You cannot divide a road and use it, or a street light, the number of street lights present on a road can be used as a wholesome good. You cannot divide and use. So, as I said, the examples are national defense, you have public parks, you have street lights, all these are a example of public good. So, these 5 characteristics build a public good. If these 5 characteristics are there in a particular good, it is called a public good. This was given by Samuelson. Now, public goods are further characterized into pure and impure goods. Now, what is the category or basis of classification of pure and impure good? The pure good is a good where marginal cost of providing it to additional person is strictly zero. Basically, if all the 5 characteristics we have discussed in the earlier slide are fulfilled for a particular public good, that means marginal cost is zero, it is indivisible, collective consumption is there, non-rivalrous is there, non-excludability is there, then all the 5 characteristics if are satisfied, then it is called a pure public good. An example of such pure public good, as far as I think, can be national defense. Now, if any of the characteristics is violated, then the pure good becomes impure public goods. So, impure public good may be partly rivalrous. There is some opportunity cost involved in admitting more users. It can happen that marginal cost is strictly not zero. Like fire protection is an example of impure public good. That is for a particular society. If you are having a fire protection, those who are calling, you are installing cylinders as a part of fire protection, extinguishers are there, are an example for specific people of that society if they are there. Now, impure public goods are further classified. See beta, impure public goods are classified into mixed goods and club goods. Now, mixed goods and club goods, what does they imply? Mixed good is basically, as I told you, a part of positive externality, what we say. Maybe immunization against a particular disease is a kind of mixed good. I am benefited from that mixed good. Additional cost does exist if the other person is getting immunized. Like see, in COVID it was there, so many vaccines were given. So every person who is getting a COVID vaccine is getting immunized for a particular disease, it has an additional cost. So marginal cost is not zero. So it is a kind of mixed good. Club goods exclusion principle does work in the sense that people who are into that club would consume that good. Like you have sports club, you have golf courses, you have swimming pools, a cricket club may be there. Even if you go and watch a movie, the people sitting in the theatre are, the movie is indivisible, the people sitting in the theatre do not have any rivalry feeling for themselves. However, they are excluded from the people who are not inside the theatre. So, at a particular point, at a stance, some characteristic of public good is violated. So, it is a kind of club good. Now, another important concept of public good, what we deal is the social want and the merit wants. See, public wants classified into 2 categories. Public wants are satisfied by public goods, but these wants are classified as social wants and merit wants. Social wants are those which are consumed in equal by all. It has a budgetary allocation. Howsoever, merit wants are those that are satisfied by merit goods. So, merit goods are provided through budget to ensure equality and social justice. Basically, public wants which can be satisfied on the basis of consumer choice, like subsidized low cost housing, free education, maybe school luncheons. These all go for example of merit wants, and the goods which satisfy merit wants are the merit goods. Now, what are private goods? Private goods who do not possess the features of public goods. That means these are those goods which yield utility to the person who is consuming that good. If I am consuming a particular good, as I said earlier, that means my utility will be satisfied. So, private goods are priced in the market, they carry a price, whosoever pays the price for that good is able to consume. The principle of exclusion is there to some extent. Many a times you have a rivalry feeling also, why X person is able to consume good and why not we are able to consume good. You can exclude people, as I said, they do not pay the price, they are excluded from its use. Rival in consumption can be there, only people who pay for them can use. If you are paying for a particular good, you can use it. If I am paying for that good, I can use it. And one person's consumption reduces the amount available to the other person. See, if certain amount of goods are only available, whosoever is paying the price, whosoever is using that good, the consumption amount would definitely decrease. See, if in a shop what happens, say water bottles are there and limited amount of water bottles are there, and I go and purchase 10, X person comes, he or she goes and purchase next 10 and another 10. So, what happens is every next person going to that place is witnessing a low quantity, a lesser quantity of that good available. So, one person's consumption reduces the amount available for the other, like food, clothing, cars. It takes time to refill that. That is private good. So, quickly we will see the difference between public and private good on the basis of excludability. Public is non-excludable, private is excludable. On the basis of rivalry, public is non-rival, private is rival. And for the examples, we all know very well, national defense, public parks, and for private it is car, clothing, apparels and all these things. Now, when the public good is made available by the government to the people through budgetary allocation as a part of their public expenditure, many a times a problem exists in this allocation of public good, and that is the problem of free riders. So, what is this free riders? As the name suggests, person utilizing that public good but not paying the price for that good. So, when an individual benefits from a public good without contributing to the cost, maybe he is not a probable taxpayer, he is not giving a price for that good, still that person is using that good. So, what happens is the impact on public good, how does this free riding problem has? Many a times difficulty in funding public goods due to under contribution, from where all the funds should be available. The contribution is not proper there. People, the usage of the good is much more than the availability. The demand is more, people are more consuming that good. Howsoever, the supply is not appropriate because of the cost restrictions. And government often steps in to provide public good. So, what happens? Determining the exact number becomes many a times difficult. Now, when the government has a problem of free riding, public good is there, you all know, and the government has to provide this public goods because it becomes the liability of the government. And the objective, you know, the objective behind providing public good is basically provision of various items of necessity to maximum people. The welfare objective is there. So, let us now discuss some of the theories, few theories of how the public good allocation can be optimized to a certain extent. So, first theory that we will be discussing will be the marginal utility theory. This theory was given by A.C. Pigou. Now what did Pigou said? It is more or less similar to what we were discussing in the previous lecture of marginal social benefit and marginal social cost. See, Pigou said that he provided an analysis which included both tax and expenditure sides of fiscal operations. Similar is the case. He said that whenever government is spending or doing public expenditure, the benefit is received by the society. So, the benefit accruing to an individual are in the form of his consumption of that public good. Howsoever, the cost that is imposed on him is in the form of taxes. So, Pigou expressed a relationship between marginal utility and marginal disutility. You remember earlier lecture we were discussing, see, whatever expenditure the government is doing, this expenditure gives marginal utility to an individual. But the tax, see, how do we define tax? A compulsory payment. A tax that is being imposed by the government gives marginal disutility, and with every unit of tax that is being imposed, the marginal disutility increases, and with every unit of expenditure which is being incurred by the government, the marginal utility decreases. So, in an analysis, he used the principle of marginalism. That means the marginal sacrifice from the tax side and the benefit from the expenditure side are considered. As you can see, so marginal utility for production of each good should be equal to marginal disutility caused by paying for either in the marketplace or via taxes. So, optimum allocation would be at this place. Let us explain this with the help of a diagram. It is more or less similar what we were discussing in the earlier classes. See, marginal disutility because of tax, T stands for tax, is taken on the negative axis of y, and marginal utility because of expenditure is taken on the positive axis of y. On x axis we are taking government budget, that is allocation of public good via government budget. Now, with each unit spent by the government as public expenditure, the marginal utility goes on diminishing. However, which each unit paid as price or imposed as tax, the marginal disutility goes on increasing. So, this is the marginal utility because of expenditure, and this is the marginal disutility because of taxation. So, what did Pigou said? Pigou told that the place, the point where marginal disutility is equal to marginal utility. If I say PQR, that means marginal utility is equal to PQ and marginal disutility is equal to QR. So, place where PQ, point where PQ is equal to QR would be the point of optimum allocation. So, point Q will be the point of optimum allocation where the sacrifice because of tax is equal to the benefit received because of expenditure. That was given by A.C. Pigou in the marginal utility approach of allocation of public good. Another approach that came into prominence after the marginal utility approach was Lindhall, Johanson and Bowen approach, that was the voluntary exchange approach. See, it derives itself from the benefit received principle governing the distribution of tax burden. Benefit received we will be discussing in the coming classes of what is benefit principle. Both of them, Lindhall and Bowen, have given the benefit principle of taxation, and this holds its base from the benefit principle. That means basically what they want to say, the price paid by individual for the same quantity of public good is different. So, what could be the optimum allocation? So, this approach basically suggests that resources should be allocated to public sector in a manner to their allocation in the market with the price mechanism. That means individual should buy public good through taxes as he elects to purchase private good through market price. See, we go in the market and purchase goods for private consumption. Similarly, the public good should also be consumed by certain amount of taxes paid. This theory is based on three assumptions. The first and foremost assumption is the production, or we say the supply cost of public good is constant. Second, the society consists of three consumers. It is assumed that there are only three consumers, A, B and C in the society, and there is only one type of public good, that is Z, which is consumed by all the three consumers A, B and C. Now, how would this be expressed and how would the allocation be held? Again, we will see it with the help of a diagram. See, on x-axis we are taking the quantity of public good Z, because we have taken an assumption, this theory holds an assumption that there is only one public good Z, and on y-axis we are taking prices of public good Z. So, y-axis has price of public good Z. Now, since there are three consumers A, B and C in the market, so three consumers would have their individual demand curves for that public good. So, let us see the individual demand curves. This we name as DA, that is the demand curve of individual A. This is the demand curve for individual B, and this is the demand curve for individual C. Now, when we sum up all the three demand curves, we will get a market demand curve. So, let us say this is the market demand curve, that is DD. That means A plus B plus C. Now, the supply of public good is constant. See, the government is providing the public goods, so there has to be a certain amount or certain quantity that is supplied by the government. So, we are taking the supply of public good as constant. SS is the supply curve. So, what happens is SS intersects DD, that is the market demand curve, at point E. The equilibrium output is OQ and the price is OP. Now, this is OQ is the quantity of public good that is being supplied by the government. Now, what happens is, what voluntary exchange theory holds is that the amount of public good cannot be changed. Howsoever, what is done rather, this amount of public good is available to different individuals on different prices as taxes. Like, for consuming OQ amount, consumer A would pay PA price, consumer B would be paying PB price and consumer C would be paying PC. So, same amount of public good is available at different prices. That was the voluntary exchange, because see, if we move towards right from point E, maybe to this point E1, what will happen? Supply would be more, demand would be less. So, overproduction would be there. If we are moving suppose to point E2, what will happen? See, supply is more. When we are moving to point E2, what will happen? Demand is more than the supply. So, underproduction. So, optimum production will always be at point where supply of public good is equal to demand for public good. So, that was the voluntary exchange theorem. Another important theorem, or the modern public good allocation theory, was given by Samuelson, especially in case of general equilibrium. Samuelson was the first to develop this approach. What did Samuelson say? He said efficiency conditions were established when economy would provide private and public goods. See, in an economy, it is not only public goods and it is not only private goods, rather a combination of both. So, what Samuelson said was, optimality can be achieved by keeping constant utility of one person and by maximizing utility of the other person. that means a person is getting better off. This is Pareto efficiency, is getting better off without making the other worse off. So, Samuelson has taken the help of a PPC curve, production transformation curve, and an indifference curve to explain his theory. His model works under two assumptions. One is, it is a 2 into 2 into 2 model. 2 into 2 into 2 basically means there are two consumers, there are two products, public and private goods, and two factors of production, capital and labor. We can understand with the help of a diagram. See, what is happening? We can take two consumers. As we know, we have two consumer A and consumer B. On x axis in both the figures, we are taking public good. This is the first diagram is of consumer A and the second one is of consumer B. On y axis in both the graphs, we are taking private goods. Now, what happens is Samuelson has used production possibility curve. So, how he has explained, if this is the production possibility curve, we can name it as PP. Production possibility curves, basically between PP we have various combinations of public and private goods. Now, we are taking the indifference curve of individual A. What is IC? Indifference curve is the locus of combinations of two commodities which give consumer an equal level of satisfaction. See, it is the property of the indifference curve that it is downward sloping, it is convex to the origin, as well as there are many other properties. Howsoever, on a single individual curve, the satisfaction level of consumer remains same. If you remember, you have studied in microeconomics, if we are taking suppose good A is on x axis and good B is on y axis, so this becomes the indifference IC curve which gives the level of satisfaction. So, if the consumer is moving suppose from point E to point E dash, the level of satisfaction will remain same. So, this is indifference curve of consumer A. Now, let us start with this point. Suppose consumer A is consuming, I am naming it as X, OQ quantity of public good and OP, or I will say OR quantity of private good. Now, this is the PP is the total production curve and OQ quantity of public good is constant. So, the same amount would be available to consumer B as well. So, consumer B will also be consuming OQ amount of, this is of consumer A and this is of consumer B. So, consumer B would also be consuming same amount of public good because public good is available in same quantity for both the consumer. Howsoever, what is happening? From the total private good available, see this side is the private good curve, y axis is showing the private good. So, OR quantity has been consumed by consumer A. So, only quantity left for consumer B is XX dash. So, the same quantity will be consumed by consumer B. I am giving the X dash same. Now, if the consumer A moves on suppose this point Y, what will happen? Whole of private good is being consumed, no private good is left, only OQ1 amount of public good is there. So, that the same quantity is available to consumer B. However, the private good is wholly consumed by consumer A, and you know the feature of private good, if private good is consumed by A, lesser quantity is available for the second consumer. So, the consumer B is not getting anything. So, This is the case of consumer B. Similarly, if we move to point Z, again what is happening? Q2 amount is available as public good. So Q2 amount would be consumed by consumer A and B both of public good. Private good again is finished by consumer A. So what will happen? For consumer B, no private good would be left. So in this way of various combinations of public and private good of consumed by consumer A, we can get a utility curve of consumer B in this way. So consumer B is consuming certain amount of private good and certain amount of public good. And if we draw a indifference curve of consumer B on the utility curve of consumer B, what do we see? We see that the point where this utility curve of consumer B is tangent to the indifference curve of consumer B, let us name it as E point, will be the point of optimum allocation. So what Samuelson did, he tried to explain using indifference curves and production possibility curves as what can be the optimum allocation of public and private goods available in the market situations for two sets of consumers A and B. So this is x dash, x double dash is the utility curve of consumer B, and indifference curve of consumer B being tangent to this point will give the maximum level of satisfaction to consumer B, and the remaining is consumed by consumer A. So this was one way given by Samuelson for describing the allocation of public good. So dear learners, you must have understood by now that what is public finance, public economics, allocation of goods, public goods, problem of externalities, and three theories of public goods. That is the marginal utility approach, the voluntary exchange approach, and the Samuelson theory of public good, that is considered as the modern and an upgraded version of the public good allocation theory in a case of general equilibrium case. So learners, for today, this is all we are discussing in the lecture. We will be meeting in the next lecture and further learning about few concepts of public finance, few theories, the taxation aspect in public economics. These are the suggested readings that will help you to understand this better. Musgrave and Musgrave, Browning and Browning, Radhakrishnan, Public Finance, Theory and Approach, and Buchanan, the demand and supply of public goods. So hope you must have understood the concepts of public good and the theories, and thank you for today. We will be meeting in the next lecture.